On the 4th day of his captivity, Cole Brannigan received a visitor he had not expected. It was not Alindra, it was Draven Solkai, the military commander who had called him Debris. Draven stood outside the transparent wall, with his arms folded, all 4 of them, and his living armor glowing a deep red. Red meant authority. Red meant a decision had been made. "The Empire holds combat exhibitions," Draven said. His voice was flat and cold. "Captured species are given the chance to fight for rank. If you win, your status goes up. If you lose, you are recycled." Cole sat on the edge of his bed and looked at the commander. "And if I say no?" "Then you are recycled now, today." Cole thought about that for a moment. His face showed nothing. "What am I fighting?" he finally asked. "A Gorvathi. They are a Tier 3 combat species. Their body is covered in natural armor, hard plates like stone. They weigh roughly twice what you weigh. They have killed many opponents in the arena." "Weapons?" "None. The fight is bare. No tools, no armor, no help. It tests what your species can do on its own." Cole nodded. "When?" 2 days. Draven waited, perhaps expecting fear, perhaps expecting begging. He got neither. Cole simply nodded again and lay back on his bed. Draven left without another word, but there was a tightness in his jaw that had not been there before. That evening, Alindra came. This time she did not stay outside the wall. She entered the cell itself, with 2 guards standing near the door. She carried a thin data tablet and sat on the far end of the bed, keeping a careful distance between them. "You agreed quickly," she said. "There was nothing to think about. You could have asked for time. You could have tried to bargain. Would bargaining have changed anything? No. Then why waste the words?" Alindra looked at him for a long moment. Then she opened her tablet and turned it so he could see the screen. On it was an image of the Gorvathi he would fight. The creature was massive, a walking wall of dark, wet-looking armor plates, with thick arms and deep-set amber eyes. Its name was Brunsk. It had fought in 4 exhibition matches and won all 4. 2 of its opponents had died. "His armor covers about 70% of his body," Alindra said. "His striking force is equal to being hit by a small vehicle on your world. He is slow to turn, but fast in a straight line. Most opponents try to match his strength. They all fail." Cole studied the image. "What about the other 30%, the parts without armor?" Alindra paused. Something shifted behind her eyes, something quick and careful, like a door opening just a crack. "The joints," she said. "The eyes. The soft area under the throat, and the backs of the knees, where the plates do not reach." Cole looked at her. "Thank you. I did not tell you this to help you," she said, and her voice was steady, almost too steady. "I told you because I want to observe how you use the information. You are my research subject. Nothing more." "Sure," Cole said. She left. The guards followed her out, and the transparent wall sealed shut behind them. Cole stood up. He pushed the bed to the side of the cell to make room. Then he began to train differently. He stopped doing push-ups and started moving. He practiced ducking, stepping sideways, spinning away from an invisible opponent much larger than himself. He threw short, sharp strikes aimed low, at knee height, at hip height, at the space where a joint would bend. He worked on his footwork, sliding across the floor with quick, light steps. He practiced grabbing and twisting, locking his arms around empty air as if he were choking something thick and heavy. The surveillance team recorded everything and sent the footage to Draven. The commander watched it for less than a minute before waving it away. "He is practicing how to lose slowly," Draven said. "The Gorvathi will end him before the crowd finishes their drinks." Alindra, watching the same footage in her quarters aboard the royal deck, did not agree. She watched Cole move, and she saw something the military commander had missed. Cole was not practicing random movements. He was building a pattern. Every duck, every sidestep, every low strike was connected to the one before it and the one after it. He was building a sequence, a plan, a chain of moves designed to take apart something bigger and stronger than himself, piece by piece. She had seen this in her research. Humans called it strategy. Other species had it too, but not like this. Not with this level of calm detail. Most species planned their fights in broad terms. Humans planned them the way engineers planned bridges, one joint and one beam at a time, until the whole structure was mapped out before the first blow was thrown. She closed her tablet and sat in the dark for a long time, thinking. The day before the fight, Cole made one request. He asked to see the arena. The guards were not sure what to do, but Alindra sent a message authorizing it, and they brought him up to the exhibition floor. The arena was a wide, round pit, with sand on the ground, and rows of seats rising up on all sides, 30 levels high. It could hold 10,000 people. The sand was pale and fine, almost like dust. The walls of the pit were smooth and curved, too high and too slick to climb. Cole walked the floor slowly. He pressed his bare feet into the sand, feeling how deep it was, how soft, how much it shifted under his weight. He looked at the walls, measured the distance from one side to the other with his eyes, noted where the sand was deeper and where it was packed harder near the edges. He looked up at the seats, at the lights, at the imperial box high above, where the emperor and his family would sit. Then he turned to the guards and said, "Okay, I am done." They took him back to his cell. That night he ate everything on his plate, drank 2 full containers of water, and lay down on his bed. He was asleep within 5 minutes. The guards watching the feed looked at each other again. One of them, a young female officer named Sorath, said something that the others remembered for a long time afterward. He sleeps like something that knows it will need its strength tomorrow. No one argued with her. In recorders, Alindra Vishari sat with her tablet open to a page of human combat history. She was reading about a fighting style called wrestling, a form of combat where humans grabbed each other and tried to force each other to the ground, using leverage and body position rather than strikes. It was old, older than most of their civilizations, and it was devastatingly effective against larger opponents. She thought about Cole's training, the way he had practiced grabbing and twisting, the way he had focused on low strikes and joint attacks, the way he had tested the sand with his feet, feeling for the ground beneath it. He was not planning to hit the Gorvathi, he was planning to take it apart. Alindra closed her tablet and pressed her hands together, all 4 of them, in the Valhari gesture of deep thought. Her hearts were beating faster than usual, both of them, and she could not make them slow down. Tomorrow, 10,000 Valhari would watch a bare human fight an armored giant in a sandpit. Most of them expected to see a quick death. Draven expected it. The Emperor expected it. The oddsmakers had already set the lines. Cole Brannigan was given a 1 in 40 chance of survival. Alindra was not a gambler. She was a scientist. But if she had been a gambler, she would not have bet against the human. Not after what she had seen in his eyes. The arena was full. 10,000 Valhari filled the seats from the lowest row to the highest, their living armor flickering with bright orange light, the color of expected violence. The noise was enormous, a deep hum of alien voices that shook the air like distant thunder. High above the sand floor, in the imperial box, lined with dark metal and draped with banners, Emperor Tharos Vashari sat with his council on one side and his daughter on the other. Alindra had a data tablet on her lap, but she was not looking at it. Her eyes were fixed on the eastern gate of the arena. The gate opened. Cole Brannigan walked out onto the sand. He wore nothing but a pair of loose trousers, no shoes, no shirt, no wraps on his hands. The arena lights hit his bare skin and turned it pale white. The scars on his chest and arms were visible even from the upper rows. thin lines and rough patches that told a story of a life lived hard. His muscles were flat and tight against his bones. The body of a man built for endurance, not for show. He looked, by every measure the Velhari understood, like something that should already be dead. He walked to the center of the sand and stood still. He did not look at the crowd. He did not wave or shout or beat his chest. He just stood there, barefoot in the sand, and breathed. The western gate opened, and Brunsk came out. The Gorvathi was enormous, nearly 7 feet tall and almost as wide, with overlapping plates of dark armor that covered most of his body like the shell of something ancient and terrible. His arms were thick as tree trunks, ending in 3 wide fingers built for crushing. His face was a flat, armored mask with 2 small amber eyes that glowed in the arena light. When he stepped onto the sand, the ground shook. The crowd's armor flickered brighter. The hum of voices grew louder, then dropped to silence as a horn blew, long and deep. The fight had begun. Brunsk charged. He came forward like a landslide, fast and heavy, his armored feet tearing through the sand. Cole moved, not with drama, not with a big leap or a roll. He simply stepped 2 paces to the left and let the Gorvathi's weight carry him past. Brunsk skidded in the sand, turned, and swung a massive arm at Cole's head. Cole ducked under it. The fist cut the air above him with a sound like a heavy door slamming shut. Cole circled to the right. His feet were quick and light on the sand. His hands were up near his chin, loose and open. His eyes were locked on the center of the Gorvathi's chest. He was not attacking. He was watching. The crowd murmured. This was not what they had come to see. Prey was supposed to freeze or run. It was not supposed to move like water around a rock. A low, sweeping strike aimed at Cole's ribs. Cole jumped back, and the thick fingers missed him by the width of a hand. He reset his feet and kept moving, circling, always circling, never standing still. For 2 full minutes, Cole did nothing but avoid. He let Brunsk swing and charge and stomp. He dodged every attack with small, tight movements, never wasting energy, never moving more than he needed to. The sand worked against the Gorvathi. Brunsk was heavy, and his armored feet sank into the soft ground with every step, slowing him down just enough to make his recovery between strikes a fraction of a second too slow. Aelindra leaned forward in her seat. She could see it. She could see what Cole was doing. He was counting. Every time Brunsk attacked, Cole's eyes tracked the movement from start to finish. He was measuring the speed, the angle, the time it took for the Gorvathi to pull his arm back and reset. He was building a map of the creature's patterns, finding the gaps, the moments of weakness, the half-seconds where the armor opened and the soft places were exposed. Then Cole attacked. It happened so fast that most of the crowd missed the beginning. Brunsk threw a heavy overhand blow, bringing his fist down like a hammer. Cole did not step back. He stepped forward, inside the arc of the swing, so close that the Gorvathi's arm passed over his shoulder. He drove his elbow into the soft tissue under Brunsk's left arm, right where the armor plates split apart at the joint. The sound was sharp and wet, like a hammer hitting raw meat. Brunsk roared. The sound shook the arena. Cole did not back away. He hit the same spot twice more, short and brutal, each blow landing exactly where the last one had. Then he dropped low and drove his knee into the back of the Gorvathi's leg, right behind the armor plate that covered the knee. One knee hit the sand. The arena went silent. 10,000 Velhari stopped breathing at the same time. Cole moved behind the kneeling giant. He wrapped his arm around Brunsk's throat, not across the armored front, but underneath the jaw where the plates ended and the thick skin was bare. He locked his hands together, one gripping the other wrist, and squeezed. His forearm pressed into the blood vessels on the side of the neck. His whole body tightened like a cable pulled to its limit. Brunsk thrashed. His armored arms swung backward wildly, and one of them caught Cole across the ribs. The crack was loud enough to hear from the upper seats. Cole made a sound through his teeth, a short, choked grunt, but he did not let go. Blood appeared at the corner of his mouth, where he had bitten through his own lip from the impact. His face went white. The muscles in his arms stood out like ropes under his skin. He squeezed harder. 10 seconds passed. 20. Brunsk's movements slowed. His amber eyes dimmed. His arms dropped to the sand and his massive body swayed. Cole held on for 5 more seconds. Then he let go. Brunsk fell forward into the sand with a heavy, final sound. He was unconscious. His armored chest rose and fell slowly. He was alive, but the fight was over. Cole stood up. He pressed one hand against his side where the ribs had broken, and took shallow, careful breaths. Blood ran down his chin from his split lip. His body was shaking, not from fear, but from what comes after the body has pushed itself past every limit it has. He stood there in the sand, barefoot and bloody and breathing hard, and he looked up at the Imperial box. Silence. Total, complete silence. 10,000 Velhari stared at the bare human standing over the fallen Gorvathi, and not one of them made a sound. Their living armor had changed color. It was no longer orange. It was pale, almost white. Cole did not know what that color meant, but Alindra did. It meant fear. In the Imperial box, Emperor Tharos turned slowly to look at his daughter. His face was unreadable, the face of a man who had ruled an empire for 40 years and had learned to hide every thought behind a mask of stone. But his voice, when he spoke, was quieter than usual. "What is he?" the Emperor asked. Alindra was gripping the arms of her chair with all 4 hands. Her hearts were pounding, both of them, in a rhythm she had never felt before, fast and hard and completely out of her control. She had studied hundreds of species. She had watched thousands of fights. She had seen creatures with claws and fangs and venom do terrible things in this arena. She had never seen anything like what she had just watched. Cole Brannigan stood alone in the sand, broken and bleeding and shaking, and he was still standing. He had taken a blow that should have put him on the ground forever, and he had held on. He had fought something twice his size, with nothing but his bare hands and his mind, and a stubbornness that went deeper than bone, deeper than muscle, deeper than anything Alindra had a word for in her language. "He is human," she said, and for the first time in her life, the word felt like it was not enough. They took Cole to a medical room after the fight. A Velhari doctor scanned his body and found 3 broken ribs, a thin crack in his left forearm, and bruising so deep it reached the bone. The doctor applied a paste that sank into the skin and began knitting the fractures together. It would take time. The doctor told Cole to rest. Cole sat on the table, pressed a hand to his ribs, and stared at the wall. He was thinking. Word of the fight spread through the carrier like fire through dry grass. The soft-skinned human had beaten the Gorvathi with his bare hands. He had taken a hit that should have killed him, and had not stopped fighting. He had not won because he was stronger. He had won because he was patient, because he was precise, and because he had a willingness to suffer that the Velhari found deeply unsettling. The guards talked about it. The soldiers talked about it. The cooks and the engineers and the maintenance workers talked about it. By the end of the day, there was not a single person on the Sereth Vaughn who did not know the name Cole Brannigan. Draven Solkai was furious. The exhibition was supposed to show the power of established combat species, not turn a piece of human debris into a legend. He went to Emperor Theros and demanded that Cole be terminated immediately. He called it a security risk. He called it an embarrassment. The Emperor said no. The crowd saw what happened, Theros said. If we kill him now, it looks like we are afraid of him. He fights again. Draven's jaw tightened. Against what? Draven growled. Something he cannot beat, the Emperor said. The Emperor ordered a second match. This time, Cole would face a Vrethkai, a Tier 1 combat species. The Vrethkai were the deadliest unarmed fighters in the known galaxy. They were fast, smart, and covered in venomous spines that could paralyze a full-grown warrior in under 10 seconds. No other species had ever beaten a Vrethkai in the arena. Not once. Not ever. The fight was set for 7 days from now. Aelindra came to Cole's medical room that evening. She sent the guards out and closed the door. She sat in a chair across from him and for a long time said nothing. The silence between them was heavy, but not uncomfortable. It was the silence of two people who understood each other better than either of them wanted to admit. "You are hurt," she said at last. "I have been hurt before. The next fight will kill you, Cole." It was the first time she had used his name. He noticed. She noticed that he noticed. Neither of them said anything about it. "The Vrethkai are the most dangerous bear fighters in the galaxy," she continued. "They have venomous spines along their forearms. One scratch will shut down your muscles in seconds. They are faster than you, they are stronger than you, and they do not feel pain." "Then why are you here?" Alindra's lower hands tightened in her lap. Her upper hands stayed still. He had learned by now that this meant she was fighting with herself about what to say next. "Because I do not want to watch you die," she said. The words sat in the air between them like something fragile that had been set down very carefully. They both knew what she had just said. In the Velhari Empire, a princess showing concern for a captured alien was not just unusual, it was dangerous. It meant she saw him as something more than a subject, something more than a specimen in a cage. Cole held her gaze. "Then help me. I cannot go against an imperial order. You already did. You told me where the Gorvathi was weak. That was research. Call this research too." Silence again. Then Alindra reached into her robe and pulled out a small data chip, no bigger than a thumbnail. She held it out to him. "Everything the Empire knows about the Vrethkai is on this chip," she said. "Their speed, their attack patterns, how their venom works, where their spines cannot reach, their blind spots, everything." Cole took it. His fingers brushed hers, and he felt how cool her skin was, how smooth, how different from his own rough hands. "Thank you," he said. "If they find that chip, we both die. They will not find it." She stood up to leave. At the door, she stopped and stood with her back to him. He could see the tension in her shoulders, the slight shake in her lower hands. "Aelindra," he said. She turned. "I will not lose," he said. She looked at him for a long time. Then she left. Cole spent the next 6 days studying that chip like his life depended on it. Because it did. The Vrethkai attacked in fast bursts. 3 or 4 strikes in rapid sequence, then pulled back to reset. Their venom spines had a maximum reach of 14 inches from the skin. Their eyes could not track lateral movement as well as forward movement. They had a thin membrane under the jaw that was softer than the rest of their body. He built a plan, not a plan to overpower the creature, a plan to survive long enough to find one opening and make it count. He trained with his ribs still healing. He focused on speed, on angles, on the ability to change direction in the space of a single heartbeat. He practiced moving sideways. He practiced dropping low and coming up fast. He practiced striking with his fingers and the edge of his hand instead of his fist. On the 7th day, the arena was full again, but this time it was more than full. Word had spread beyond the carrier to the rest of the fleet. Dignitaries from 3 allied species had come to watch. The Emperor himself opened the match with a formal speech. The crowd was twice the size of the first fight. Cole walked out onto the sand, barefoot and bare-chested, same as before. His ribs were wrapped in thin tape. His face was calm. Across the arena, the Vrethkai came through the opposite gate, and the crowd went quiet. The creature was beautiful in the way a blade is beautiful. It was sleek and dark, covered in scales that shimmered like black water. Its arms were lined with rows of thin, glistening spines that caught the light like wet glass. It moved like liquid shadow, smooth and silent, its eyes scanning the arena with cold intelligence. The horn blew. The fight lasted 4 minutes and 31 seconds. Cole was scratched twice, once on the left shoulder, once on the right thigh. Each time he had less than 10 seconds before the venom locked his muscles. Each time, he used those seconds with a focus and a fury that made the crowd lean forward in their seats. He targeted the blind spots. He targeted the balance points. He used the sand, the walls, the Vrethkai's own momentum against it. He struck the membrane under the jaw with everything he had, again and again, until the creature stumbled and fell. When it was over, Cole was standing, barely. The venom was crawling through his body, locking down one muscle at a time. His left arm hung dead at his side. His right leg was going numb. He had maybe 30 seconds before he fell. He looked up at the Imperial box. Alindra was standing. Every other person in the arena was sitting, but the princess was on her feet, all 4 of her hands gripping the railing, her violet eyes wide, her silver circlet catching the light. The crowd was watching her as much as they were watching him. The arena was built so that even a whisper from the Imperial box would carry down to the sand floor. This was an old design, made for royal commands. Alindra knew this. She used it. Vethari Solenkai, she whispered. The words moved through the arena like a wave. Every Velhari heard them. Every Velhari understood them. The phrase was ancient, older than the empire itself, from a time before the Velhari had left their home world. It came from the old bonding rituals, the ones that bound 2 lives together as equals. In the modern empire, the phrase had a very specific legal meaning. When spoken by a member of the royal family in a public place, it marked the subject as a protected consort, someone tied to the royal house by personal claim. No military commander could override it. The only person who could undo it was the emperor himself, and only by stripping the speaker of their royal title. Alindra had just made Cole Brannigan untouchable. She had done it in front of every eye and every ear in the arena. On the sand below, Cole's legs finally gave out. The venom took hold, and he dropped to his knees, then to the ground. But he was alive, and because of 4 whispered words from a princess who had decided that this human was worth more than her own safety, he was going to stay that way. The silence in the arena lasted a very long time. The political storm hit before Cole even woke up. Draven Solkai called an emergency meeting of the Imperial Council within the hour. He stood before the gathered lords and commanders, his armor burning red with anger, and made his case. The princess had acted out of emotion, he said. She had been manipulated by the human. The ancient bonding words had no place in modern law. The declaration should be thrown out, and the human should be terminated before this embarrassment spread any further. The council debated for 6 hours. Voices were raised. Alliances were tested. Half the council sided with Draven. The other half were not sure. At the end of it all, Emperor Tharos Vishari raised one hand, and the room went silent. He looked at his daughter. Alindra stood before the council in full ceremonial dress, her silver circlet polished, her back straight, her 4 hands clasped in front of her. She did not look sorry. "Did you mean it?" the emperor asked. Alindra met her father's eyes. Every word. The emperor was quiet for a long time. He was not a soft man. He had held the throne for 40 years, through patience, through calculation, and through a willingness to sacrifice anything, including his own blood, for the stability of the empire. He looked at his youngest daughter, and he saw something he recognized. He saw someone who had made a choice, and was ready to carry the weight of it. "The declaration stands," he said. Draven's face went pale. "Your Majesty, the message this sends to the Empire is mine to decide," the Emperor said. The human fought 2 exhibition matches and won both. He defeated a Tier 3 and a Tier 1 opponent with nothing but his bare body. He has shown more raw ability than most of the species we have conquered. If my daughter sees value in him, I will not dismiss her sight. He paused and let his gaze sweep the room. But the human will earn his place. He is not a gift. He is not a decoration. If he is to stand beside a Vashari, he will stand as something the Empire can use. Cole woke in a different room. The walls were solid, not transparent. The bed was wide and soft. The air smelled clean, not recycled. He was wearing dark blue clothes, simple but well made, and the pain in his ribs was gone. Velhari medicine had healed the fractures in hours. The venom had been pulled from his blood. The scratches on his skin had closed without leaving marks. He sat up slowly and looked around. The room was in the royal section of the carrier. He could tell by the quality of the walls, the thickness of the door, and the quiet hum of better engines on the other side. She stood in the doorway of his new quarters and looked at him with an expression he could not quite read. It was not happiness. It was not regret. It was something between the two, something complicated that the translator probably did not have a word for. "You should know what I have done," she said. "I heard the translation. Then you know that in the eyes of the Empire, you are bound to me. I figured that out. I did not plan this. I need you to understand that. When I went to the arena, I did not intend to say those words." Cole leaned against the wall and folded his arms slowly, his ribs still a little tender despite the healing. "Then why did you say them?" Aelindra stepped into the room and let the door close behind her. Her voice dropped lower, and something raw came through the translator that the machine could not quite smooth away. "Because Draven had already written the order to have you killed after the fight. Win or lose, it did not matter. You were to be terminated as soon as you left the sand. I found the order 1 hour before the match began. The only legal tool that could overrule a military kill order from a ranking commander is a royal bonding declaration. So, it was a move, a strategy. It was the only way to save your life. That is not what I asked." Aelindra's lower hands tightened. Her upper hands stayed still. Cole waited. He had learned that when she fought with herself like this, the truth usually came next. "No," she said quietly. It was not only strategy. The silence between them was not empty. It was full of things neither of them had words for yet, in any language. "I have studied your kind for years," Aelindra said. "I have read your histories, your wars, your poems, your medical records. I thought I understood what humans were. I believed you were fascinating, but simple, biological machines built for lasting violence." She paused. "Then I watched you fight, and I understood that I was wrong." "Wrong how?" "You did not fight like a machine. You fought like someone who had decided, calmly and clearly, with full knowledge of what it would cost, that he would rather die standing than live in a cage. That is not biology. That is something else, something I do not have a name for." Cole was quiet for a moment. "Where I come from, we just call that being stubborn." Something appeared at the edges of Aelindra's mouth. It was small and uncertain, but Cole recognized it. It was a smile. He had never seen a Velhari smile before, and it changed her face in a way that he did not expect. It made her look younger, It made her look real. "The Empire will test you," she said, and the smile faded. "My father has said you must earn your place. There will be challenges. Political, physical, mental. There are factions in the court who will try to break you to get to me. Draven will not stop coming. You are one human. The Empire has 800 billion people. I have had worse odds. You keep saying that, because it keeps being true." Alindra studied him. "You really are not afraid." "I did not say that," Cole said. "I said I have had worse odds. Fear and odds are two different things. I can be afraid and still show up. That is sort of our whole thing." She stepped closer to him. In the low light of the room, her violet eyes held depth that he had not seen before, layers of color that moved and shifted, like water in a deep well. She was alien. She was strange. She was the daughter of an emperor who ruled a civilization that had been conquering worlds since before humans had learned to write. And she had risked everything she had for him. "Then we face it together," she said. Alindra looked at it, then at him, her head tilted slightly to the side. "It is how humans seal an agreement," he said. She reached out with one of her upper hands and took his. Her skin was cool and smooth against his rough palm. Her grip was stronger than he expected. "Together," Cole said. The news traveled fast. Within days, every allied species, every client world, and every rival empire in the sector had received the same report. A lone human, unarmed and unarmored, had beaten two of the most dangerous combat species in the known galaxy, and had been claimed as an equal by a princess of the Velhari throne. Some called it a lie. Some called it interesting. Some called it a threat. On Earth, in a small underground office beneath a mountain in the state of Colorado, a woman named Lena Beckett sat at her desk and read a decoded transmission from a deep space listening post for the third time. She was the deputy director of the Office of Exosolar Intelligence, a department that most of the world did not know existed. She picked up a secure phone and called her superior. "We have a situation," she said. "One of our people is inside the Velhari Imperial Court. He is alive, he is protected, and he has access to the royal family." A pause on the other end. "Is he one of ours? An agent?" Lena looked at the file on her screen. Cole Brannigan. Cargo runner, no military background, no intelligence training, no combat record of any kind. Just a man from the outer colonies who had learned to take a hit and keep going, because that was the only option life had ever given him. "No," she said, "he is not one of ours. He is something better. He is an accident." "What do you suggest?" Lena leaned back in her chair and looked at the ceiling. The Velhari Empire was the most powerful force in the known galaxy. They had 800 billion people, thousands of warships, and 6,000 years of conquest behind them. And a princess of their royal house had just tied herself to a human cargo runner because he would not stay down. "I suggest," Lena said slowly, "that we let him play." Far above the earth, in the royal quarters of the carrier Sereth Vaughn, Cole Brannigan stood at a window and looked out at the stars. There were more of them than he could count, scattered across the black like dust on a dark floor. Somewhere behind him, Alindra sat on a chair with a data tablet in her upper hands and a cup of something warm in her lower ones, reading quietly. It was still. It was almost peaceful. Cole knew it would not last. The Empire was old and vast and full of people who wanted him gone. He was one man with healing ribs and a borrowed title, standing in a world that was not his own. But he had survived the arena. He had survived the venom. He had survived the silence of a cage and the roar of a crowd and the whispered words of a princess who had bet her future on a feeling she had not fully admitted to herself. He had survived, and that, he thought, was a good place to start. Outside the window, the stars burned on, steady and endless. And somewhere in the vast machine of the Velhari Empire, something had shifted. A small crack in a very large wall. A single human heartbeat in a galaxy of silence. It was not much, but it was a beginning. The Velhari Empire had ruled the Andros sector for 6,000 years. They were not the strongest species in the galaxy, but they were the most clever and the most cruel. Every world they found, they took. Every species they met, they broke. There was no mercy in their empire. There was only the throne and everything beneath it. So when a small beat-up cargo ship drifted into Velhari space with only one living person inside, the Empire treated it like garbage floating in the wind. The human's name was Cole Brannigan. He was a cargo runner from the outer colonies of Earth, a man who had spent most of his adult life hauling supplies between stations that nobody cared about. He had rough hands, a calm voice, and a face that looked like it had been hit more than a few times. When the Velhari soldiers dragged him out of his ship in heavy metal cuffs, he did not fight. He just looked around the massive docking bay of the Imperial carrier Sereth Vaughn with steady eyes, like a man counting the doors in a room he might need to leave in a hurry. They brought him before a military court within the hour. The Velhari were tall and thin, with pale purple skin and 4 arms that moved like snakes. Their officers wore living armor, suits made of something half alive that changed color depending on rank and mood. The court commander, a cold-eyed male named Draven Solkai, looked down at Cole like he was looking at an insect. "You entered our space without permission," Draven said. His words came through a translator built into the wall. "You had no trade pass, no military badge, no diplomatic seal. By our law, you are classified as debris." Cole said nothing. "Debris gets processed," Draven continued. "Broken down, recycled, but the princess has shown interest in your kind. She wants you kept alive for study." Cole's eyes moved slightly when he heard the word princess, but nothing else on his face changed. They took him to a holding cell deep inside the ship. It was not a prison. It was more like a cage for an animal. The walls were see-through. The air was controlled. There was a small bed and a water tap. Nothing else. He sat on the bed and waited. What Cole did not know was that the Velhari had been watching Earth for decades. They had picked up television signals, news reports, sports broadcasts, and most importantly, footage of humans fighting. They found humans both amazing and terrifying. Here was a species that fought each other for fun. A species that could break its own bones and keep going. A species that sweated liquid to cool itself down, like a machine built for long, drawn-out violence. The princess who had saved Cole from being recycled was named Elindra Vashari. She was the youngest daughter of Emperor Tharos Vashari, the ruler of the entire empire. Elindra was not a warrior. She was a scholar. She studied how alien species fought, how their bodies handled pain, how they survived things that should have killed them. She had written papers and reports that were read across the empire. And among all the species she had studied, humans were the ones that kept her up at night. She came to see Cole that evening. She came alone, which was strange for someone of her status. She was tall, even for a Velhari, with deep violet eyes and a thin silver band across her forehead. She stood on the other side of the clear wall and looked at him the way a scientist looks at a dangerous animal brought in from the wild. "You are smaller than I expected," she said. Her voice was smooth and even, turned into flat English by the translator. "Most people say that. Your species is known for violence. Most species are." Elindra tilted her head to one side. "You do not seem afraid." Cole leaned back against the wall. "Would it help if I was?" She did not answer. She watched him for a long time, her 4 hands folded in front of her, her violet eyes unblinking. Then she turned and walked away, without another word. That night, the cameras in Cole's cell recorded something the Velhari guards did not expect. He got off the bed and started doing push-ups, then sit-ups, Then he stretched every part of his body in a slow, careful routine that lasted more than an hour. He was not nervous. He was not bored. He was getting ready. The guards watching the screen looked at each other. They had seen captured animals pace back and forth in their cages. They had never seen one train. Over the next 2 days, Cole followed the same pattern. He woke up early. He ate whatever food they gave him without complaint. He drank water. He sat still for hours at a time, barely moving, his eyes open, his breathing slow and even. Then he trained again. He did not talk to the guards. He did not ask questions. He did not bang on the walls or beg to be released. The guards began to feel something they could not quite name. It was not that Cole was dangerous in any obvious way. He had no weapons. He had no claws, no armor, no venom, no natural tools of any kind. His skin was soft. His bones were breakable. He was, by every measure the Velhari used to judge a species, weak. But there was something in the way he sat still. Something in the way his eyes tracked every person who walked past his cell. Something in the way he trained with such quiet, steady focus, like a man sharpening a blade that nobody else could see. Alindra watched the recordings every night in her quarters. She watched him do the same exercises over and over. She watched him sit in silence for hours. She watched the way he breathed, the way he moved, the way he looked at the world around him with a calm that did not match his situation. She had studied dozens of species. She had seen creatures with natural armor, creatures with claws that could cut through metal, creatures that could spit acid or generate electric shocks. All of them, when captured, had reacted the same way. They either panicked or they gave up. Cole Brannigan did neither. He prepared. And that, more than anything else, was what made Alindra Vashari afraid. She pulled up her notes on human physiology and began reading again from the beginning. She had a feeling she was going to need every piece of information she had. Somewhere deep in the carrier Seraph Vaughn, in a transparent cell with nothing but a bed and a water tap, Cole Brannigan finished his evening training, lay down on the thin mattress, and closed his eyes. His heart rate dropped. Within minutes, he was asleep. The guards watched him on the screen and said nothing. But later that night, when their shift ended, 2 of them requested transfers to a different section of the ship. They did not say why.